Let's begin by talking about the Homiletics Directory that was published at the beginning of this year, 2015. It's obviously a massive project and a great tool for preachers, for priests and bishops and cardinals and so forth, but an incredible thing. And I'm wondering, what necessitated that work, that publication for the Church?
Well, it had its origin, in fact, in the Synod on the Word of God in 2008.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the Synod, the Fathers had said that what they wanted to see as one of the practical outcomes of that Synod was a greater and more detailed consideration of the importance of the homily in the life of the liturgical life of the Church. So Pope Benedict, when he considered that further following the Synod, asked the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments to actually oversee the writing of that document.
It is, and incredibly important too, because when you speak to anybody inside or outside the Church, often they'll point to the homily as the real kind of the point of encounter, or the point that they feel is the most important, maybe as a part of the liturgy or as a part of even their life in the community, their life in the Church. Is that fair, that people sort of put this much emphasis on?
Yeah, it is, and I think that, you know, it's people need to be nourished in their faith, and there's no doubt that the substantial nourishment of our faith comes from our attendance at Sunday Mass. So the homily, which is part of the proclamation of the Word of God, is part of that, because the bishop or the priest or the deacon who is preaching has to bring the sort of Word of God into practical application for people's lives. It's certainly something that occupies the minds of people. That when they're not nourished when they come away from Mass, unless that's their own fault by a lack of attentiveness or because they're preoccupied with other things that are going on in their lives and they're not always entirely able to listen. But if they go wanting to be nourished because they're living at the coalface of life, and if they come away and they're not nourished, well, something's missing, which is really important to them, and which is really important to the mission of the Church. Our raison d'etre as a Church is to be missionary, and for the leaders, for the pastors of the Church, that raison d'etre is very, very important to actually take on board in a very considered way, to prepare for preaching by prayer and by study. You know, one of my predecessors, when I was Bishop of Leeds years ago, one of my predecessors used to say to the priests, when you're preparing your homily, don't only have the Bible in your hand, in this hand, but have the daily newspaper in that. Because your job is to bring both of these together so that you can actually put God's viewpoint on the reality of the world in what you say, in what you preach. So I think that was very good advice. You know, it certainly it lodged itself in my mind that, you know, it wasn't just to talk about pious things, it was to talk about the reality of God in this situation in which we're all living.